The sound of my vintage leather suitcase hitting the wet asphalt wasn't just a thud. It was the visceral, sickening sound of 15 years of marriage shattering into irreparable fragments. Rain didn't just fall, it hammered against the driveway, a cold, relentless assault that soaked through my dress shirt in seconds. But the cold outside was nothing compared to the absolute zero freezing my heart. I stood there, staring up at the oak double doors of the home I had built with my own hands. The porch light cast a golden, mocking glow on the two silhouettes standing on the dry, sheltered landing. Elena stood with her arms crossed, her posture rigid, radiating that newfound arrogance she had adopted over the last 6 months. Beside her, wearing my cashmere robe, was Julian. He held a mug of herbal tea, blowing the steam away with a casual, bored expression, as if watching a man's life disintegrate was merely a mild inconvenience to his evening routine. "Please, David, don't make this harder than it needs to be." Elena's voice cut through the sound of the rain, sharp and devoid of any warmth. "You're disrupting the energy of the house. Julian and I have a session in 20 minutes, and your negative aura is clinging to the foyer." I wiped water from my eyes, blinking rapidly. "My negative aura? Elena, I paid the mortgage this morning. I restored the woodwork on that porch you're standing on. You're kicking me out of my own house for a yoga instructor you met 3 weeks ago?" Julian stepped forward, tightening the sash of my robe. He smirked. "It's not just yoga, mate. It's an alignment of souls. Elena has transcended your vibration. You're stuck in the material grind. We operate on a higher frequency now. Honestly, you should be grateful. She's releasing you." The audacity was suffocating. I looked at my wife. "Elena, think about what you are doing. You're throwing me out onto the street in a storm? Where am I supposed to go?" She sighed, checking her manicured nails. "Go to a hotel, David. Go to your brother's. I don't care. Just go. I need space to breathe. I need this house to myself to truly center my chakras. Julian is moving his things into the master suite tonight. We need the space for our morning tantra practice." "The master suite?" I choked out. "My bed? It's our bed, technically," she corrected, her eyes narrowing. "And since the house is marital property, I have every right to remain here while we process the separation. Possession is 9/10 of the law, isn't it? Now, please, leave. The tow truck is coming for your sedan in 10 minutes if you don't move it." The heavy oak doors slammed shut. The definitive click of the deadbolt sliding into place echoed like a gunshot. I was alone, soaking wet, humiliated. I dragged my suitcase toward my car. As I sat in the driver's seat, shaking from the cold, I gripped the steering wheel until my knuckles turned white. It hadn't always been like this. 10 years ago, Elena and I were struggling. I was a junior architect, burning the candle at both ends, and she was an aspiring designer. "One day, David," she had whispered to me once, "one day you'll build us a castle." And I took that as a vow. I worked 80-hour weeks. I grayed prematurely. All to buy the plot of land on Hawthorne Ridge. The house wasn't just a building. It was my love letter to her. But as the money started rolling in, Elena changed. First, the designer clothes. Then, the spiritual retreats. And finally, Julian. The 25-year-old wellness coach, with a man bun and a vocabulary consisting entirely of buzzwords. "Julian says my root chakra is blocked because of the stress you bring home," she had said over a dinner I paid for. I was blind. I didn't notice I was being replaced until my bags were packed by the door. "Possession is 9/10 of the law," she had said. Sitting in my car, listening to the rain pummel the roof, I replayed those words. Then, a memory surfaced. A very specific, very dry, very legal memory. 5 years ago. The deed transfer. We had created a trust. Elena had been so bored by the legal jargon she refused to read the documents. "Just show me where to sign so I can go to brunch," she had complained. My hands started trembling. I dialed a number I hadn't used in years. "Blackwood," the voice on the other end answered. "Arthur." I said, my voice steady. It's David. I need you to pull the file on the Hawthorne Estate Trust. Specifically, the infidelity clause and the primary beneficiary addendum. There was a pause, and then a low, dark chuckle from the lawyer. David, tell me she didn't. She did, I whispered. She kicked me out. She has a lover in the house. Oh, David. Blackwood's voice dropped, rich with anticipation. If she kicked you out while harboring a paramour, do you remember what paragraph 4, section C says about constructive abandonment? Remind me. It says that the moment an unapproved occupant resides in the home for more than 24 hours while the grantor is expelled, the ownership doesn't just split. It reverts to the original purchaser. Solely. And it triggers an immediate liquidation of her access to the joint accounts to cover damages. I looked up at the window where Julian and Elena were undoubtedly celebrating. They thought they had won the war because they captured the castle. They didn't realize the castle was rigged to explode. Prepare the papers, Arthur. I'm coming back tomorrow. And I'm bringing the sheriff. I spent the night at a budget motel that smelled of bleach. I didn't sleep. I watched the notifications on my phone. Transaction alert, $400 at Whole Foods. Transaction alert, $2,000 for a Peloton. They were erasing me. By 9 a.m., Arthur Blackwood pulled up in his Jaguar. He handed me a fresh coffee. The sheriff is meeting us at the property. I've already filed the emergency injunction. The judge signed it 20 minutes ago. We drove to the house. When we turned onto the street, my stomach dropped. There was a moving truck in the driveway. A massive 18-wheeler. I sprinted up the driveway. Movers were hauling my furniture out of the front door. Elena was standing on the porch, sipping a green smoothie. Julian was shirtless, supervising the loading of my vintage record collection into the back of his Tesla. Hey! I roared. Put that down! What the hell do you think you're doing? Elena lowered her sunglasses. David, seriously? We're cleansing the space. Julian says this old furniture holds stagnant trauma. We're selling it to fund the renovation. You're selling my grandfather's table? I stepped forward. Julian stepped between us, puffing out his chest. Bro, lower your voice. You're disturbing the peace. Elena decides the energy of the home now. Just sign the papers and move on. You're embarrassing yourself. Actually, a deep baritone voice cut through the air. I believe we will be the ones handling the police matters today. Arthur Blackwood walked up the driveway, flanked by 2 uniformed sheriff's deputies. Elena's face shifted from annoyance to confusion. Julian took a step back. What is this? Elena demanded. This is a civil matter. I own half this house. Officer Miller. Arthur nodded to the deputy. Would you please explain the situation? The deputy stepped forward. Ma'am, we have a court order enforcing an immediate eviction based on a violation of the property deed. You have 15 minutes to vacate. Eviction? Elena laughed nervously. I'm his wife. California is a community property state. Normally, yes, Arthur said, pulling a document from his briefcase. However, the house is owned by the Hawthorne Preservation Trust. Read page 12, Elena. I watched as she read the highlighted section. Her hands started to tremble. Clause 4C, the infidelity trigger. She read, her voice barely a whisper. In the event that the beneficiary forces the grantor from the residence to facilitate the cohabitation of a romantic partner, the property reverts to the sole ownership of the grantor effective immediately. She looked up, pale. You can't just put that in a deed. You signed it, Elena, I said. 5 years ago. You said, just show me where to sign so I can go to brunch. Arthur chuckled. Keep reading. Section D. She read silently, and then she froze. Her mouth opened, but no sound came out. I read it out loud for Julian. Upon activation of Clause 4C, all joint liquid assets are automatically frozen to cover legal fees and damages. Frozen? Julian squeaked. It means, I said, pointing at the moving truck, that the credit card you used to rent this truck? Declined. The Tesla payment? Bounced. The $20,000 you transferred last night? Reversed. Elena looked at Julian. Then she looked at me. The arrogance was gone. David, she whispered, reaching out. Baby, wait. Julian is just a friend. You're misinterpreting everything. I stepped back. Officer, I believe these trespassers are delaying the restoration of my property. And Julian is wearing my robe. All right, folks, the deputy said. You can leave voluntarily, or we can assist you. Take the robe off, son. Julian looked at Elena in panic. Elena, do something. You said you had this handled. I gave up my apartment for this. Shut up, Julian, she screamed. She turned back to me, sobbing. David, where am I supposed to go? You canceled the cards. I have no cash. I looked at her, remembering the rain soaking my shirt the night before. Go to a hotel, I said, echoing her words perfectly. Go to your brother's. I don't care. I need space to breathe. But I have no money, she shrieked. Manifest it, I said coldly. I turned toward the house, but then I saw Julian's open backpack on the ground. Inside, there was a stack of papers. My bank statements. And a passport. Julian's passport. I picked it up. A one-way ticket to Costa Rica fell out. Dated for tomorrow. Arthur! I yelled. Don't let them leave yet. Look at this. Costa Rica? Elena's voice cracked. She stared at the ticket. Julian, why do you have a one-way ticket for tomorrow morning? We were supposed to start the renovation. Julian tried to laugh. Babe, it's a surprise retreat. With a single ticket? I asked. I handed the statements to Arthur. And what about the $50,000 transferred to an offshore account yesterday? Arthur scanned the papers. Officer, probable cause for grand larceny and wire fraud. Cuffs, the deputy grunted. As the handcuffs clicked onto Julian's wrists, he started screaming. It was her idea. She gave me the passwords. She's the accomplice. Liar! Elena shrieked, launching herself at him. I trusted you. You said we were twin flames. I told you were an easy mark. Julian spat back. You're a narcissist who got bored. It was too easy, Elena. I stood on the porch, watching them tear each other apart. The officers dragged Julian toward the squad car. Then, there was only Elena. She stood on the driveway, shivering. She looked at the police car, then turned slowly to face me. David, please. I didn't know. He manipulated me. We can go to counseling. Just let me come inside. It's cold. I looked at Arthur. He handed me a single sheet of paper. A quitclaim deed. Sign this, I said, placing it on the hood of her car. You sign this, relinquishing any claim to the house, and I won't have the officers arrest you as an accessory to Julian's fraud. You walk away with your freedom. But you leave the house. Forever. And if I don't, she whispered, then you can join your twin flame in jail, Arthur said. With a shaking hand, she signed. Goodbye, Elena, I said. Where will I go? She asked, her voice small. I walked up the stairs, my shoes clicking on the wood. I reached the double doors and looked back over my shoulder. The universe will provide. I closed the doors. The lock clicked. 8 months later. The smell of fresh coffee and sawdust filled the air. I stood on the newly refinished deck. The house was different now. Peaceful. It took time, but Arthur recovered most of the money. Julian is currently serving 3 to 5 years for wire fraud. Turns out, his real name is Gary, and I wasn't his first victim. And Elena? I saw her once, last week. She was waiting for a bus in the rain, wearing a work uniform, looking tired and old. Our eyes met for a second. I didn't wave. I just drove past. She wanted a life without me. She got it. My phone buzzed on the table. A text from a woman I met last month. Someone kind. Dinner tonight? I'd love to see the house you built. I smiled and typed back. Come over. The energy here is finally perfect.